Alcoholics do live a double life. There's the self that you want to show to the world, and then there's the real self.
You know what? I wanted to drink. I like to drink.
I had a hole inside me that I was always looking to fill.
I was a crazy drunk bitch, and that's the truth. I was insane.
When you talk about women and this disease, it just takes you down. All I can think about is I just want to drink. All I want is a drink. I just want to go away.
A woman with alcoholism is not a bad person, but a sick person that needs some help.
I knew in my heart something very bad had happened.
She would have never left her daughter on Christmas Eve. Santa's coming the next morning. She would have been there, and we knew this.
This disease kills people, and that's the truth. It kills people.
Julie was a very free-spirited and loving, compassionate woman.
The first time we really talked to each other, you know, the bells and whistles happened, and it was definitely a love connection from the very start. Julie and I were together for 8 years. We had a very solid relationship.
Her family was like #1 to her. That was her world, was her family. We became very close. Julie had confided in me with a lot of sensitive issues, a lot of things that she was dealing with. We had a true friendship and trust that not many people get to share.
The only trouble in our relationship was her alcoholism.
You know, this is such a deadly disease, and there's only one way I can really phrase it, but alcoholism it's a beast. I don't believe that we'll ever know the reason why Julie picked up that drink on December 16th. I had talked to her about 10 in the morning, and she sounded fine. There was just no red flags at all.
You know, I can't think of anything that was specific to that day. That's the hard part of all of this. There wasn't an event or anything that happened that day. It just happened.
Julie had gone to the school and picked up her daughter. Apparently her ex-husband called her, and she was drunk, and he knew it, and he threatened to call the police.
At around 5 o'clock is when I got a call that Julie was drunk, and I was amazed. So I called Julie on the phone and begged her to pull over and let me come get her. And she wouldn't do it. And then her ex-husband called me and said that he had called the police on her, you know, which is why she wasn't coming home.
Julie, in fact, I think was very scared. And I think she ended up turning off a main road, driving back in a neighborhood. All the streets looked the same, all the houses. And she drove way back into this neighborhood, a couple miles.
When I got home from work, there was a police officer here wanting to know where she was. And I didn't know. I had no idea where she was. I absolutely think she was in that neighborhood because she didn't want to come home because she knew the police would be here and what the legal ramifications were going to be.
Her daughter was very scared. And when the car finally did come to a stop, her dad instructed her to get out of the car, go to the nearest house, and knock on the door.
I was just coming home. I saw something like a Suburban or a vehicle like that parked right across the street from my house over there. A little girl had got out and went and knocked on the door, and my son and 2 of his friends were outside, probably right there in a minivan. The little girl said that she needed help. My son took her and set her in the van with his friend and their 2 little kids because it was freezing cold that day. The lady driving the vehicle put her car in reverse and backed up like 5 houses and left her car running, and she just got out herself. The truck had rolled forward and ran into that tree. I saw her walk down the hill, and she got about as far as that green thing, and then I couldn't see her at all. And the police came. She had just like disappeared. They said, you know, to try to look for her, but don't try to stop her. My son went looking for her before the police even got here, but we didn't find her. It was dark, and it was freezing, freezing cold.
I got a call that she was in Dale City and there had been an accident and that her daughter was okay and that she left the scene of the accident, which totally blew me away because I can't ever see her leaving her daughter.
My understanding is that the police weren't very helpful. In fact, they thought that Julie was fleeing the scene and that she was trying to avoid police. Literally, they didn't do anything other than drive up and down the street.
In the police eyes, you know, that she was like unfit person because she was drinking and she had her child with her, you know, which I do 100% understand them being concerned about the little girl. But just like I told the police, she's a person. She's gonna freeze to death out here. It's really cold. And she didn't have like a winter coat on. She didn't have her purse or anything. I told them it was just her.
I guess it was probably 8 o'clock. It was dark, very cold, and I went through the neighborhood to look for her. And there was no sign of her at all. I heard nothing else from the police that night. So the next day, I went to the police station and tried to file a missing persons report. The desk officer attitude towards it was that, you know, she's a drunk, she's running from the law. And I became very persistent and wanted to see a superior and stressed that point that she would never leave her daughter.
I had no idea that Julie was missing. On Friday morning, I got a call from Jerry. Jerry was asking if I knew or if I had heard from Julie at all. And I told him I didn't expect to, that I had talked to her on Wednesday and everything seemed fine. He had told me that she hadn't come home, and that was very much just not like Julie at all. No matter what, she would always be in touch with her husband or daughter.
VDOT trucks load up with salt and sand as the massive storm inches closer to the metro area. The weekend before Christmas may bring a winter storm to remember.
Julie's parents came in from California on the night that it started to snow. And of course, they were very concerned, very worried. And we got 2.5 feet of snow.
The snow fell hard. It fell for 24 hours. At times, there was no visibility. Everything was shut down, from the airports to the trains to the metro to the traffic on your street. It completely paralyzed this region. The official snowfall total at Reagan National Airport was 16.4 inches. But in Northern Virginia, as much as 2 feet of snow fell. This was an incredible snowstorm. It was so big that it's going down in the history books. It was the largest ever December snowfall in Washington's history.
You know, Julie so desperately wanted to be that perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect daughter, and she just never felt like she measured up. And it was those haunting feelings that she would give up. The drink would win.
Alcoholism has been a problem throughout the ages. We used to see it more in men because they were less closeted, they were more in the public eye, they sought help more. But now we're seeing it equalized, and we see women and men both having a lot of difficulties.
Well, both men and women do hide their drinking. It's not just women who hide it, although women are probably more likely to hide their drinking because of the great social stigma that is associated with drinking.
Women who have a problem with drinking are much more harshly judged in our society than men, harshly judged by their family members, harshly judged by friends, and they're 12 times more likely to experience resisting to coming forward and admitting that they have a problem. We spend many years hiding the fact that alcohol is taking over our lives.
This disease kills people, and that's the truth. It kills people. As a teenager, I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in, like I couldn't find my place, awkward and uncomfortable, and so drinking is what got me through it. I was always kind of in trouble. Like, I was that kid that was always in trouble. My naughty alcoholic behavior started a long time ago, and luckily, the mom in me curbed it when I had kids. I had a family. I had a family that I wanted 2 little boys and a husband and a house, and I got to stay home and be the PTO baseball mom I wanted to be. But as I was growing up, and I didn't really know how to deal with those feelings of not feeling comfortable and not feeling good enough and wanting to fit in but never feeling like I did, there was a death in my family, and without even noticing, I went into caretaker mode. I forgot to take care of myself, and so I started to drink because you can't handle that much pressure.
I think that women are taught from a very early age to kind of suck it up and take care of other people, and not always to express their feelings or acknowledge feelings like anger.
So I started drinking just, at 5:30 or before a baseball game, just a few beers. And with that, like, some of my responsibilities started slacking off a little bit.
Let's go, guys, come on. Let's go.
When feelings build up over time, that can be a setup for alcoholism, because you can only hold so many feelings for so long, and then you need relief and you need some way to feel better.
Come on, you guys. My marriage really wasn't that happy of a place to start with, and so we started to fight, and as we started to fight, I started to drink more. My divorce was definitely the time where what I had envisioned, and even if it was just a fantasy of a perfect life, which it really was, it was still my fantasy of a perfect life. And the breaking down of it was horrifying and horrible and sad, and I went from drinking a little bit after 5:30 to drinking every day.
You gotta go get that, go get it.
I got to the point where I couldn't imagine my life without drinking. And when you get to that point, when you can't imagine going to a baseball game or a PTO meeting or on a date or anything without being intoxicated, you are screwed. I was a crazy drunk bitch, and that's the truth. Like, I was insane. During the end of my drinking, nobody really wanted to hang out with me. Like, all I wanted to do was drink. And if you couldn't drink as much as me, then I didn't want to hang out with you, because God forbid somebody point out the fact I was an alcoholic. And even the heaviest of drinkers, at some point, like, I had a boyfriend who was my drinking buddy and he left me. You know, when your drinking buddy leaves you, that you've got a problem. Get asked that all the time, like, what was your defining moment? What was that moment of clarity where you knew? And for me, I got a DUI. And when I read the ticket from the DUI, it was like excessive speed, running a stop sign, running a red light, and I didn't remember any of it. I didn't remember. I mean, I remember drinking at the bar and I remember getting in the car, but all of those traffic violations, I didn't remember, and they pulled me over with their guns drawn, and horrifying. It was horrifying. I spent 14 days in jail. I lost my license for 2 years, which now looking back on it was kind of where my recovery began. But when you are a single mom of 2 little boys, you can't Like, I couldn't figure out, like, how are we possibly gonna do this? And I knew I had to ask for help. I had tried not drinking by myself a few times, and I knew I could not. I wrote every day, and to look back is amazing. I'm so glad that I did that. But I started to do that to kind of get out of myself and to get away from some of the pain as I was numbing out and sobering up. I was feeling all of these emotions, and I had to have an outlet. So I wrote.
November 2007. Somewhere in my brain, I always knew that sobriety was my only hope, but I fought it until the bitter end, until my life was so out of control, so unmanageable, that I had no choice. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I am scared, I am sad, and all I can think about is drinking.
Alcoholics and addicts don't like their feelings. That's normally why we drink. When you go sober, you feel them. You feel them.
The constant craving in my body is almost painful. I want it gone. I will pray. I know everyone goes through this. I know I better reach out or I'll fall on my face. I cannot do this alone.
When I had that moment of, oh my God, I'm gonna have to feel my feelings for the rest of my life, I didn't know if I was courageous enough to do that. Now I know I am, but like that moment of clarity of, oh shit, there is no more numbing agent, not ever. So get on your big girl, because you're gonna walk through it and feel everything. Totally scary.
December 2007. Powerless. Oh my gosh, I am. Alcohol was my best friend, my support system, my comfort. I didn't think about how I couldn't get out of bed, how I couldn't get anything done, how I drank instead of playing with my kids, how I fought and argued with everyone and went totally crazy. I didn't think of any of that, just when I could take my next drink. It had total and complete control of me.
Not driving was really difficult and humbling. Having to ask for rides to get the kids to games and to go to the grocery store. I mean, such simple stuff like picking them up from a friend's house. It had to be pre-planned. It was really, really, really difficult. At about 8 or 9 months, I went from that discontent crawling out of my skin, I'm never gonna make it, I wanna drink every day, feeling to, hold on a minute, I can do this.
At 9 months sober, my world opened up. All of a sudden, that feeling of complete anxiety and discomfort lifted. I would have never known that all the pain was worth it. I guess that's what they mean when they say, don't give up before your miracle.
This is my breathalyzer. I've had it for a year. It's like 12 days till I get it off, which is super exciting. Every time I go to start my car, I push the button, it warms up, it tells me when to blow. And we wait for it to say pass, which I always pass. And I can start the car. The breathalyzer is a pain in the ass, but I am so grateful to be driving that I don't mind at all. It's my honor to breathe in this stupid thing. I won't pick up a drink because coming as far as I have, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to have to go sober again. It's hard. It was really, really, really hard.
Hi, Kate.
I have a tendency, like so many alcoholics, to isolate and to not talk about it and to kind of let my disease get the better of me. And because I blog every day and I've made a commitment to do that, I can't completely isolate. Like, I need to log on to my website every day and say something. I had no clue that emilyism.com would become what it is today, which is an amazing, neat, loving, supportive recovery community that's anonymous. My readers are from all over the place. Minnesota, Chicago, all over the country. A lot of just normal women. Normal women that are on the PTO or are full-time employees or really good wives or whatever that are at home and feel alone. I have thousands of readers that haven't yet commented. They just read for the support. You kind of hope that they get to the point where they email you or reach out for help. But until then, if reading is what helps them, then that's where they are. I don't want any woman to feel like they're alone, like they're the only one in this secret shame of alcoholism. And by building a recovery community, it just gives them that place to go where they can read about somebody in recovery, and the comments, you know, are supportive and loving, where they can feel safe to ask questions and to just feel less alone.
May 4th, 2010. I've had kind of a pink cloud day, a day when everything just kind of flows and you float along with it. I heard the things I needed to hear to feel relief. I shared my real feelings. I'm chipping away at the things of my program I am trying to work on. It has been an all-around good day. I am doing what I am supposed to be doing, and even though it is not necessarily what I want to be doing, it is the next right thing. I'm sort of proud of myself today. I feel courageous and strong. It is nice. Sobriety's pretty much pretty good, you know? But I work really hard on that. I work really, really hard on that. If I do what I'm supposed to be doing, it's pretty great, and I'm at peace. But that's absolutely a daily deal.
Women who have alcohol dependence lose control over their drinking. This isn't something that they're deciding to do. And so there's no reason for shame. There is a need for help and understanding.
I knew in my heart something very bad had happened. It's kind of like one of those things you know, but you don't really want to know. And at that point, you know, it became more of a feeling of despair, and just not knowing was agonizing. That Sunday, her parents and I went to the police station again to see what they were doing, and they were doing nothing.
We told the police this was so unlike her. We told the police that we would have heard from her. We told the police she wouldn't have gotten in a car with a stranger. We told them that she wouldn't be fleeing to some hotel. And she had no credit cards. She had no money. There was no activity on any of this. Did the neighbors know what happened? Did anybody? I mean, who could we turn to? Who maybe saw something? She didn't just poof, vanish in thin air. I felt like I had to do something. I was going to get a search party together and start looking. Back down on that side. Sir, we're trying to find a dear friend of ours that's missing. This is a flyer of her, and she went missing on the 16th around 6 o'clock.
A lot of these houses up through here are vacant. There's a wooded area back behind these houses right here that it's kind of difficult to get to unless you walk into the houses with no fences, but half of these houses have no fences, you know?
Hey, Robin, I'm gonna put flyers up on these posts. Maybe somebody walking by will see her picture or see it. We all had split up, going down different streets. And basically the neighbors didn't even know that something had happened. They didn't know that the police had been there. They didn't know there was a missing person. They didn't know if there was somebody in the area that had abducted her. They didn't know if there was a murderer. They didn't know. And quite frankly, the neighbors were pretty upset. And they all rallied around. They said they'd be more than willing to help.
I just wonder if she was in good enough shape to get back there.
Really, that's what
you saw her.
So. This neighborhood is so big. It takes up most of Dale City, you know. It's one of the bigger neighborhoods in this area. See how there's like that little gateway or something like that, or maybe up on the back porch or in the shed, because all these houses are abandoned. I thought that she was definitely somewhere in that area down the street. I mean, right there is a giant hill, right here is a giant hill. Almost every hill you go up here this is the only way that's downhill. I knew that she would be in this area within a football field's radius because she wasn't going to make it any further than that.
Let me go back here and look. You stand right here and just watch. It was just a matter of Julie. It was all about Julie. It was all about finding her for her sake, for her mother's sake, for her daughter's sake. This is Christmas Eve that we're talking about, and you know, she would have never left her daughter on Christmas Eve. Santa's coming the next morning. She would have been there, and we knew this. We knew. She didn't get very far.
Hi there. My name is Mary, and I'm looking for a friend of mine that went missing in this neighborhood on the 16th. I asked him to keep this story alive, asked whoever came to the house if they had seen anything or heard of anything.
That night, I was out and my wife was shopping.
And quite frankly, we were desperate. There's a creek down in here. I can't begin to tell you how painful it was to see Julie's father and Julie's mother knocking on doors, hoping that somebody would have an answer to where her daughter was.
All we could do was look. When we obviously don't have the resources the police have. So it was all up to us, and we kept hitting dead ends. We just couldn't find her.
This fence here. I didn't want to give up. So Robin and myself, we started looking in sheds. We started looking under porches, just thinking that maybe she was trying to get warm or to get out of the cold. I see those papers up there. It looks like it's foreclosed and vacant. You want to hit those windows, and I'll see about the front door. Look, that window's knocked out too, where the air conditioner is.
Here, this is open.
Oh my gosh. Robin.
This door is open.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Let's just go in.
You go first. It really stinks in there. It's...
Here.
Does it have electricity?
Oh my gosh, this has been abandoned, it looks like.
And trashed?
Oh my.
But maybe she came in here just to get out of the elements, or maybe somebody brought her back.
I don't want to go through here by myself.
What if somebody brought her in here? Could you imagine? Anybody here?
Looks like somebody left in a hurry.
Let's bolt. This is not a good place. You know, it was never an issue about what Julie had done was wrong. She was in no state to have been driving, but the fact that she got out of the car without a purse, without money, without a cell phone, without a coat, something was terribly wrong.
It could have been me. I suffer from alcoholism. I had not done the same thing that Julie did that night, but I very well could have. Because, you know, we do things when we're drinking that otherwise we wouldn't do. And so I just knew, I knew she had to be found.
She's a person, and she's in trouble. And we needed help, and there was no help. We were the voice that Julie is somewhere, and we need to find her.
We are in this moment where the power dynamics between men and women are shifting radically, and so men and women are effectively switching places. So there are all these new expectations on women, that they be the breadwinner in the family, that they do really well in school and college, that they get ahead in the workplace, and that they are perfect raising their children. And this brings a lot of freedom for women, but it also puts a lot of pressure and expectation on them that they never had before.
With so many responsibilities stacked every day, there's less and less time for women available to take care of themselves, and that shows up in all kinds of ways, including alcoholism as well as other medical problems.
If you're not ready, you're not getting sober. That's the bottom line. I came from a family who was very religious on one hand. On my father's side, they were Pentecostal. My grandmother, I had a very strong influence on her side. And yet, everywhere you turned, there was alcoholism. My dad was an alcoholic, and his uncles, and yeah, it was everywhere. I had no idea, though, because it just seemed so normal to me, that I didn't really get it until I got older.
Women who have a family history of alcohol dependence are at significantly greater risk of developing alcohol problems themselves. But they're also at greater risk because a lot of drinking activity has been modeled in the home.
I did not feel like I was pretty growing up. I felt actually very unattractive. My mom had pushed me into modeling and thought it would be a great career for me. But even when I became a success, I did become a pretty big model. I was the top model in Canada for a long time until I moved to New York. And I lived in Paris for a long time. It doesn't matter who's telling you what. When you grow up with those insecurities, it's up to you to start to love yourself. And I don't think I had that capacity for many years. He was full on in his addiction. He was, drinking, cocaine, the whole deal. And I'd say I was a lightweight. I'd go along with it. Every couple weeks I'd have a joint, or I'd have a joint and a glass of wine, but I didn't think I had a problem because I was no worse or better than anybody else out there. I was seeing people do all kinds of things, so I was just recreationally having a good time. I was a sweet, nice girl, but on the inside, I just couldn't get enough. And when I got married, I had a responsible life. I then had my daughter, and I felt like I owed it to her to live a good life. And I had this real sense of entitlement, like, well, I'm never going to be like those people, or I'm never going, my ex-husband's the one that has the problem. I was in my early 30s when I got divorced. My son was 10 months old, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I was not doing drugs or drinking. My friends were like, well, why don't you have a glass of wine? You never drink, just have a glass of wine at night. And so I did. And really, that's when I felt the alcohol take hold of me. I had one glass of wine, then I'd have 2 glasses of wine, then maybe I'd have 2 glasses of wine and half a Xanax. Then maybe I'd have 3 glasses of wine, a joint, and half a Xanax. And then I thought, forget the wine, I moved to vodka and to scotch because, why waste your time with wine when you can go right to something that you take 3 sips and you're starting to feel that effect. I had this fear because I was alone in my life now. I didn't have the husband, I didn't have the buffer, I didn't feel safe. I was alone with 2 kids. And when that would hit me, I would drink to feel okay. I started to drink to feel normal, which is bizarre. I moved into a house in the Hollywood Hills, which I loved, and I felt really safe up there. I would leave my doors open. It was the middle of nowhere. I had neighbors, but they weren't right beside me. It was very quiet. It was beautiful. Who doesn't have their kids on Christmas Eve? Well, I didn't. And I said, okay, this Christmas I'm not going to drink. I'm going to get sober. I went to bed that night and I heard a crash around 11:45, and I thought my Christmas tree had fallen over. I remember I checked to make sure my master bedroom door was locked. Then I hear, if someone's in there, you need to tell me now. I thought, oh, I'm not going to say anything. I went into my bathroom, I locked my bathroom door, and as I was calling my neighbors, he started to kick down my master bedroom door. I opened the window, which set off the alarm. But I was so afraid that he was going to keep coming after me that I climbed onto my roof and I jumped off my roof and I ran to my neighbor's house. When I landed on my feet, I broke every bone on every metatarsal across both of my feet and the side bones on the sides of my foot, and I shattered my right arm. And for some reason, I just got up and I just kept on going. And I got to their door and they dragged me in and called 911, and that was the beginning of my bottom.
When you talk about, women and this disease, it just takes you down. Because there I am in a hospital with broken feet, and all I can think about is I just want to drink. All I want is a drink. I just want to go away. After that happened to me, something started to change in me. My drinking started to escalate, but my mind started to tell me that you're an alcoholic. I started to finally have that click in.
Most alcoholics know that they're alcoholic long before they share that information with anybody else or anyone else finds out. And they have a deep sense of self-loathing and self-hatred that stays with them all the time. And then the only thing that relieves that sense of self-loathing is more alcohol.
I was in the pantry at 7 in the morning, hiding my alcohol. I would pretend I was going in to get the kids cereal, and I would have a cup in there, and I would have my alcohol, and I would pour it in, and I would just pray that nobody would ask what was in the cup. At 7 in the morning, I'm drinking straight vodka at this point. I think that women carry so much shame. I think we have so much shame about being alcoholics. I don't know why.
There is a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is about something that you did. Shame is about who you are. And I think for women, there is a setup to feel shame when you're an alcoholic.
I think that we're moms, you know, where there's a maternal thing in us, where there's a perfection. I mean, I know for myself, I strove for perfection, and in doing that, it started to take me down. After the home invasion, I was completely paranoid inside. My drinking and using was escalating, and I couldn't stay there anymore. My dad was in town, and he said, "Why don't we go look at other places? You can't stay here. You're never going to let this go." And when I moved here, I thought I'd paint and touch it up and do little things, but in my drinking and using grandiosity, I just decided, you know what, just rip it down. I'll live in the guest house, I'll be on the property, and I built my first house. I built half of it drunk, and I built the other half sober. I just remember my friend Jody calling me up, and she was in a program and that she was taking a cake in for having a certain amount of time sober, which was, I think, 21 years. And she called me, and I went, "Oh, brother." And for some reason, a bunch of women in a room who knew who you were and accepted who you were, where there was no shame, where nothing you did was worse than the person sitting beside you, that worked for me. And that day, I just looked at Jody and I said, "Happy birthday, and I want to get sober." Cutting to now, my daughter, who's 22 years old, is now getting sober, and she has almost 40 days. Why don't you come over here, Hannah?
I have 40 days sober.
Oh, she does. She has 40 days today. Yay! I brought her to the guest house. Come to the guest house. I think the guest house is, it just has good energy, and she's making it.
I was just drinking, and I was doing lots of coke, and I was doing lots of pills, and I was waking up every day, and instead of functioning like a normal person, I would have a swig of vodka, and then I would do a line, and then I was getting sick all the time, so, you know, like, my first half of the day would be me throwing up from the night before, and then the next part of my day would be me, like, partying. I was just drinking nonstop, and I was all puffy, and I was doing a gram of coke a day, so I was like wasting all of my money, and it just got really bad. I could just see how it was affecting people around me, and I saw how well she was doing being sober, and then I kind of just thought, you know, I think I need to be sober. I'll call you Marlon.
Okay, I love you. There she goes. Yeah. I think the first year, it was such a miracle. I felt so special. I felt that I just wanted the world to know I was sober. Hey, Boris. Yeah, I just saw the new t-shirts. The second year, I think I became a little more playful. I became a little more creative in the things I was thinking about.
Yes, I hear Mr. Tyler likes our shirts. I'm very excited about that. I wanted to inspire the world, but I really wanted to get in touch with the young kids. And I thought if I did a t-shirt line, and sure enough, in doing that, our following with young kids has exploded, and they're just so happy that someone's in touch with who they are and how they're feeling. I get stopped on the street every day. I've actually taken a t-shirt off my body and put my coat back on and given it to someone on the street. They flipped out over the t-shirt. And I'm like, well, if you stay sober today, I'll give you the shirt right now. And that's what I did.
Hey, Donna. How are you? Good to see you. Is TaJa here?
Yeah, let me grab her for you.
Oh, cool.
It's just changing the world one t-shirt at a time.
Hey, girl.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
What's going on?
We got some shirts for you to look at.
Love to see.
My confidence in myself right now is amazing, and I feel really good about myself, but I never want to forget where I came from and how hard it was to get here. You know, because this is truly a gift. You know, some people never get here.
I'll line up the shirts for you. Isn't that great? That's one of my faves.
It's joy that you can't even put into words. You know, the fact that I show up for people, the fact that I'm a great friend, that I'm a really good mom, that I know how to communicate, I know how to set boundaries, I know how to take care of myself. That all comes from loving myself, and that all comes from being sober.
This is our logo, the Sober Sexy with the lips.
I was living in a prison, and I know that women out there can relate to that because you were literally living in your own prison. And you were so scared to step out of that box.
He's awesome. He's such an amazing, talented musician.
They talk about a comfort zone. It's very comfortable staying in your disease because it's what you know. You know, but once you begin to change that and shift it and come out of it, I mean, you're a butterfly, you know? It's just fantastic.
Women have a fear about going into treatment. They're worried that they'll be punished, that they'll be seen as bad people, not people with a disease. And this gets in their way of seeking treatment themselves.
It's hard to say why Julie had relapsed so many times over the years, what that trigger is. But there's a moment when it comes down to having the hope or giving up, and the drink wins.
Yes, I'm calling to check on a missing person. Julie Kroll. That night it was very, very cold. I felt that somebody may have picked her up. Okay. I was hoping that that was the answer. And the not knowing was just agonizing. Her parents and her are very close. They came 3,000 miles, and they were feeling pretty helpless at this point. They had been to the police station more than a couple of times, and we were just getting nowhere. I don't think her daughter understood what was going on. You know, she knew that Mommy wasn't here and was really very quiet and withdrawn.
Finally, on the 28th, Julie's story had been released to the media.
We were trying to get the police to involve the media from the very start, and they wouldn't do it. And then on the 28th, they put out a mugshot of Julie on TV and said this woman is a fugitive and read the list of charges. Instead of a missing person, she at that point became a criminal, and that was really tough to take.
these bloggers that were suggesting these horrible things, you know, what Julie did was horrible. Driving with your daughter in the car is tragic. It's poor judgment, but that's what alcohol does. It gives us poor judgment.
You're talking about somebody with a disease that makes poor choices, and that doesn't make them a child abuser.
Mothers do know that they shouldn't put their kids at risk. Mothers are extremely protective and for the most part nurturing of their children. That, you know, a lot of mothers would throw themselves in front of a car rather than their child get hurt. But the reason that women will drink and drive is because they don't understand how out of control they are.
You know what? I wanted to drink. I like to drink. I would still like to drink.
I come from a long line of alcoholics, and that's sort of the good news, bad news. It's pervasive through both sides of my family, and you know, I think it's pervasive in the whole world. As a child, I remember being afraid. And I didn't have the words for what that was, for what alcoholism was, but I just knew that my parents didn't get along, and I was afraid, and I was protective over my younger sister. But I think I was really depressed about it too, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I was sad and scared and depressed about it. At a very young age, I think I started comparing my insides to other people's outsides. I think I felt different. I think I was different. And for me, that stemmed from having divorced parents and an alcoholic father. The first time I ever went to an AA meeting was with my dad. He had gotten sober. He was really proud of that, understandably. In retrospect, I get that. And he wanted my sister and I to be with him. My dad started talking about himself and what he used to be like and what happened and what he's like now. And I was beyond mortified. And I thought to myself, I will never go to Alcoholics Anonymous again. This is awful. I will never do this. This is embarrassing and scary, and I don't want this in my life. The first time and maybe the second time I ever drank are crystal clear to me. It's as if they happened yesterday. The first time, ironically, was shortly after I went to that meeting with my dad. I liked that I felt like I could say whatever I wanted to say and be whoever I wanted to be, whether it was fake or real or whatever. I liked it. I hated it because it was also, for me, from the very beginning, brutal hangovers and brutal, brutal consequences. I wish my college years were more of a blur than they were. Unfortunately, I have some very visceral, vivid, shameful moments. I could drink like a fish. I could drink guys twice my size under the table. I developed such a capacity. But I was drinking scotch and water, and then it became scotch on the rocks. I also drank tequila and bourbon and everything and anything. I loved being in college. I loved the drinking and partying aspect of it. I loved the fraternity parties. I loved feeling popular. I definitely slept around a lot, and I did it all under the influence. I did it all while drinking and smoking pot and doing coke and doing whatever drugs you had. I'd love to do it again sober. Love to try that sober. When I was 24, I had gotten my degree in political science. I had accepted the staff research position, ironically, for the Committee on Narcotics Abuse and Control in DC, at Charlie Rangel's committee. I was drinking like crazy, and I was getting into all sorts of trouble, and I was going through alcohol and men like nobody's business. I got a phone call one night at 2 in the morning, and it was my mom calling. And my mom said, "Your sister's been shot." It's weird because I remember being annoyed at my mom because I'm thinking, why isn't she saying what she really means, which is, your sister's been killed. My sister, Jill, had been shot and killed, and she was 22 years old. Her ex-boyfriend, drug dealer, they had been split up for 6 months. She had successfully gotten away from him, but through a series of circumstances, he found out where she was living, and ultimately he broke into her apartment and shot and killed her. I remember one of the scariest parts of this experience was seeing my mom's face, and she had aged overnight. She'd always looked really young, and she was so ravaged by this event. After my sister died, I went downhill pretty quick over a 3-year period. I didn't want to suffer. I didn't want to be who I was. I didn't want to be even the bad daughter that was left. I didn't want to be an only child. I didn't want to be a slut. I didn't want to be the person who made bad choices. I wanted all of that to go away.
Sometimes when something tragic happens in our lives, we have so much emotional pain that we do try to numb it and anesthetize ourselves with alcohol after that. And that can really lead to an increase in drinking as well. Because if you don't know how to manage your feelings without a substance and you have something horrible happen to you, that's going to be the thing you turn to.
I told her this sort of litany of all my problems, and they were numerous, and they were pretty big. She just looks at me and she goes, well, Jody, you're an alcoholic, and I can't help you unless you're willing to get sober. I think getting sober is probably the single most difficult thing in life. And it is because of the denial. Because I know I lied to myself about my drinking. I lied to myself particularly about my ability to handle whatever it was that I drank. I think what happened with me is the drinking stopped working. I mean, my God, if it still worked, I'd still be doing it, but it really stopped working. And there became that point of diminishing returns where it's just like, I can't get drunk enough to shut all this up. This is too much suffering. You know, it's just too much.
A lot of alcoholics are under the impression that they should never be uncomfortable, and that's just not the case. In order to experience the joy and the beauty, we also have to experience the pain and the suffering. But going through all of it brings us to our full experience of humanity, and that's really what living sober is all about.
I have been one of the really lucky people. Like, we're very few and far between who has not had to pick up a drink or a drug in 22 plus years. I don't know, it's a gift. I mean, I've worked very, very hard for that, but it's such a remarkable gift because there have been so many times in my sobriety that I've wanted to drink. Probably the lowest time in my sobriety, and that was when I was going through my divorce at 15 years clean and sober. I would go to pump gas, and I would get a whiff of the gasoline, and it would remind me of scotch and water, and I would salivate. I would be like, I've got to have a drink, and I've got to have it right now.
Once you stop drinking, it's no longer a drinking problem, but there's still a thinking problem. And that's where ongoing help is absolutely crucial. Because even if there's no drinking, there's still plenty of thinking, and alcoholics need to keep that on track, no matter how long they've been sober.
My favorite part of all of it is right now. Right now, I just turned 50, and even though I have been through maybe one of the biggest, craziest months of my entire life ever, here's what I do. I play it out. I think, boy, it'd be nice to, you know, have a drink and take the edge off, have a Valium and take the edge off. I definitely still have that thought. Like, I wish I could be like a normal person and have that. And what I do instead is I take deep breaths and I pray. And that's what I do. And that works for me because I've been taught to play it out. So let's do this. Okay, let's play this out. So I have a drink. Well, I've never had just one. So then I have 14. So then I'm somewhere where I don't know where I am. And then I'm no longer a good mom. And then my son has a drinking, alcoholic mother. And that is just unacceptable to me today. He has never seen me drink. And with, you know, God's grace and a lot of footwork on my part, I'm gonna keep it that way.
Brought you some tea. Thank you.
I think there's a perfectionism that goes along with my alcoholism that is so intense.
It's all completely spontaneous. It's like.
And for women, I think there's a shame thing that gets triggered, and that's what's causing more and more women to drink. That's what I drink over. I hope society recognizes and does something about, because it's brutal. It's a disease of the body. It's a disease of the mind. It's a disease of the spirit. It's hard.
We think of that superwoman phenomenon as a thing of the past, but in fact, it's much more intense now because there are so many more choices. I mean, as my friend said one time, which had never occurred to me, you know, my mom didn't feel like she had to get her toenails done. She was like a working woman, right? If you were a working woman, you were allowed to be kind of working woman-like. You didn't also have to be like a babe and perfectly put together and have your toenails done all the time. Like, that was the other kind of woman who did this. Like, you could choose what kind of woman you were, but now you're really supposed to do all those things at once.
We are not super women. We can't do everything.
There were two different people. There was Julie that drank and Julie that didn't drink.
Alcoholics do live a double life. There's the self that you want to show to the world, and then there's the real self and all the real things that the person is doing that only they know about.
Julie was your typical California girl. I think the beach was her favorite place. Julie was the epitome of a dog person. She loved dogs. We fostered probably 100 dogs for an animal rescue. It was kind of like a doggy hotel here. I think the unconditional love was what she liked most about them.
Julie was a real family person. That was the core of her being.
That's one of the things I really respected most about her, is that she would do anything for her daughter. They had a very special bond. I've never seen a parent and a child bond quite like that. I've been sober for 20 years. I was sober when I met Julie, you know, and that's been a constant in my life. Having an addictive personality myself, I'm very in tune with that, and that wasn't something that I noticed until we were together a while. She was a binge drinker, not necessarily a maintenance drinker. She would go on binges and be incoherent for a couple of days. She was very dismissive of it. Like, it's no big deal, I was just having a few drinks. Just kind of played it off very nonchalantly. The company we were working for dissolved, and I think that was kind of, if there was a trigger, that would be the trigger, because shortly thereafter is when she got her first DUI. She had a great lawyer, and really, the first offense was just a slap on the wrist. I believe in hindsight that had she gotten a stiffer sentence on the first DUI, maybe the tide would have turned and it would have become more real to her that she had a problem. Julie would hide bottles everywhere. She was a master at hiding them. That was pretty consistent. I think denial really slowed her progress towards any sort of reasonable recovery. The denial was big, and she did not want to admit she had a problem at first.
I don't believe she wanted Jerry to know how bad it was. And that's, again, the stigma that gets attached to women so often.
On her second DUI, She was still on a restricted license at the time and was pulled over driving impaired. She should have been dealt with a little more severely, but all she paid were monetary fines and lost a license for a year and continued to drink. She was facing jail time and loss of license for 3 years, as well as big fines. But her lawyer, again, was great and was reduced to her second offense. She went to a 28-day treatment program in North Carolina and then had the court date where she was sentenced to home detention. But she could never put together any great length of sobriety. The disease really had her. When she became friends with Mary, that's when some real change started to take place in a positive direction. She seemed to have more direction and more intent on being sober, and that was big.
She was in a lot of pain and needed someone, and I feel very fortunate that I was that person that she chose to confide in. After over 10 years of recovery, I was in a car accident and the doctor prescribed Vicodin.
Sometimes exposure to a medication because of a medical procedure can internally trigger a person to have cravings because certain parts of the brain have been exposed to a substance.
I had this voice within me that said, you know, if one's good, two is better, as far as taking the medication that was given to me. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody about it. I thought, how could I have these feelings after so many years of recovery? And I was afraid to really mention to anybody that those thoughts were entering my mind. Instead of picking up a phone and calling somebody or going to a meeting and asking for help, I started the spiral of using drugs again, prescription drugs this time. And when I wasn't able to take the prescription drugs, then I started drinking. And one led to the other, and that whole denial of, well, I can take a drink, or I wasn't that bad. Only I know today that I was just lying to myself. I started leading this secret life of having wine bottles stashed downstairs, or having a six-pack in the garage, or having a bottle in my car even. Yeah, I can remember a time when I was up at the Taco Bell and I was sitting in the parking lot and I was having a vodka screwdriver before I went home, just knowing that I didn't want to go home without having some sort of alcohol in me. Well, I had been working in a dental office and my doctor had taken a vacation and gone out of the country, and I found myself without any pills, and there was prescription pads and I knew where they were, and so I thought I'll just write a prescription. And I took it up to the local pharmacist thinking that, well, he'd go ahead and fill it for me. You know, he knows, I've been in recovery and he wouldn't suspect me forging a prescription. And in fact, he's the one that saved my life. He called the police. I saw police cars riding down my street and I knew they were coming to get me. I had that feeling, and in a way it was just like, it's over. The game is over. When I was arrested, I invited all the neighbors down to tell them what was going on and to admit to them that I had a problem. And the neighbors just rallied around me and just wanted me to get help. And my job My employer stood by me, and that just, it meant so much to me. I think so many women nowadays find themselves in a place where coming home and having a glass of wine, 1, 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine, to relax from the pressures of the world that we know it now. More women working, more than ever. Sometimes it's that women need the support. We fall short of being perfect, and you think that a drink's gonna make us better. A drink's gonna help us to be better. A drink's gonna solve our problems, and it doesn't.
And like a speech class is something that everybody has to take.
I can't put anything before my recovery. It's the most important thing. Without it, I don't have a family, I don't have the job, I don't have my dignity. And I think, above all, with my relapse, it was my dignity that I lost.
That's where the snake was over there.
Oh, the water
When I almost stepped on it.
As a psychotherapist, I can tell you that the idea that alcoholism is something that can be controlled at will is absolutely unrealistic. A lot of people who don't understand anything about the disease think that you should be able to control it at will, that you should be able to just say no, and that if you really wanted to stop, you could. But the truth is that you can't.
I think Julie did feel shame about her drinking and the stigma that comes with it. She didn't want to be viewed that way. And I think that was very difficult for her. She got drunk in November, and again, there were police involved at that point. I think that kind of struck her, was kind of a light bulb moment for her that, you know, this was really serious.
Julie was really in a vulnerable position in December. She was concerned about her parents coming for the holiday and how that was going to go over.
She was a little stressed about the holidays, but not any more so than she'd ever been before. Things were going in a very positive direction until 5 o'clock on December the 16th.
I just have to say, I was so frustrated. I just felt as though the parents weren't getting anywhere, her husband wasn't getting anywhere, I clearly wasn't getting anywhere. The story that the police were portraying was the farthest from the truth, and I decided to call local politicians. So finally on the 29th, the police decided that they were going to do a grid search of the area.
My street goes down and up, and if you could see like where I'm pointing, in that general area is where the police found Julie when they decided to, you know, that they were really gonna look for her in the grid search.
The search for a missing mother may be over. Julie Kroll hasn't been seen since she left her 8-year-old daughter alone after a car crash nearly 2 weeks ago.
Prince William County emergency workers retrieve a woman's body found in some Dale City woods. Police believe it's 39-year-old Julie Ann Kroll, a Woodbridge mother who hasn't been seen for 13 days.
They found her about 300 yards away from where she was last seen, where the car had been parked.
Police say the body fits the description of Julie Ann Kroll, a mother who went missing 2 weeks ago.
After spending days and hours and looking for Julie, here the police with the expertise of knowing where to look or what would maybe be an obvious place to look, they found Julie's body within hours. Within hours, they found her body.
I was actually in a meeting, and Mary texted me that I needed to come home right away. So I stepped out of the meeting and called her right away, and she told me that they had found her, and I came home. My heart was broken. I kind of knew that this would be the outcome, but it still didn't seem real yet. Didn't seem real till I got here and there were police at the house. And there were, news trucks pulling up out front, and then it kind of became real to me. I think she was so gripped by the disease that fighting it was all-consuming. That's what killed her.
Yes, there was. Right down there. My husband went all the way down there. Where they found her is right there where those two trees are bent at an angle.
Why 13 days? Why did it take 13 days? A life is valuable. We're talking about a mother, a daughter, a wife. Julie was a somebody. This beautiful woman, this loving, compassionate, devoted mother and wife was left there. Who decided not to look?
I truly 100% believe that if it would have been the police next door neighbor, one of their friends, their cousin, their dog, their cat, they would look for her. But because she was drinking, she'd been known to be drinking, she put herself in that position. It wasn't worth their effort.
I can't say that I have closure yet. There's still so many questions that aren't answered. I hope one day I'll have closure. I hope one day we get answers.
I would hope that women would learn that the end, untreated, this disease will kill you. It's really serious, and you need to get help.
I think that in order to change the environment so that women feel safer coming forward with their drinking problems, we need to change the conversation. Conversations within our families, among our friends, with doctors that we may see on a regular basis, and understand that alcohol dependence is a disease.
I think there's societal expectations on women that are mothers that are far-reaching, and I don't think there is a Mrs. Cleaver in reality. Women have issues. All people have their issues. Unfortunately, Julie's caused her death.
Julie's story is so commonplace that the thing that's so tragic to me and just is so heartbreaking is that her story is my sister's story. What if she'd gotten sober? What if she'd gotten to have that life, that fairy tale life, or just a great life, or just any life?
Recovery isn't something you do momentarily or for the week or for the month. It's something you do for the rest of your life if you want to be happy.
Give me 5.
If there was one message I would get out, it would be that you're not alone. The shame around it. People don't feel ashamed when they're diagnosed with diabetes or cancer. There's no reason to feel ashamed for being an alcoholic. There's nothing you can do about it besides get recovery.
It's such a fleeting thing, life. It's so short that why not enjoy every minute of it and be present for every single minute of it?
What a beautiful girl.
You know, because this is it. This is not a dress rehearsal. I just would say to any woman out there that is struggling with this disease that just give it a shot. Call someone right now and just reach out and just let them know, because you know what? The shame is in continuing what you're doing. But the real joy and the real win in this is when you can finally let it down. Get that crap off your body and just start to live.
For women who are drinking now and in the depths of that isolation and that loneliness and that darkness, reach out, pick up the phone, call someone that's close to you. Get the help, ask for the help. It's there, but the first step is that you have to ask for it.
Line up the shirts for you.
And you'd be surprised. People want to help those that want to help themselves.